On a night like this, one show is simply not enough, especially when you consider the fact that the legend himself, Rick Barry, he gave his insights, and I can't love that man enough. He is one of the greatest human beings on this planet. Now it's my turn, and I'm going to break down a lot of positives from this Warriors Nuggets game. I came away from this encouraged. Sure, there were some things that were concerning, and yeah, the Warriors lost this game, but they didn't win it in a blowout, or they didn't lose it in a blowout. And they easily could have, and I feel should have won it. And we're going to break it all down next. Part two. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads. The scene was blowing up tonight. We've heard the old adage, NBA Twitter, NBA Threads is now happening, folks. You can follow me there at Dog Wild. This is a part two. Yes, Jimbo, the refs were absolutely horrendous. I still cannot get over the fact that that goaltend was not called. A situation that was not reviewable because there was no call to challenge, right? And maybe that's something the NBA needs to look at, is challenging non-calls like that, because that was a huge momentum swing in the favor of the Nuggets. Kay, you're right that this is pathetic. A loss is a loss. If this was the postseason, I'd agree with you a little bit more. Still wouldn't fully agree, but over an 82-game season, to lose one game on the road the way the Warriors did against the defending world champions by 3 points, and they could have easily won the game. I don't agree with the premise that, a loss is a loss. This was an encouraging loss, and it's something they're going to build on. And I believe the Warriors and Nuggets play again on Christmas. Someone could confirm that. And Devanshu, what is up as well? And Irwin Kwong writes, good measuring stick. Agreed. This was an excellent measuring stick. And again, very important to note that while the Nuggets were missing Jamal Murray, there's no questioning that's impactful. Jamal Murray is the Nuggets' second best player. He's their starting point guard, even though he's more of a shooting guard, but he plays a point guard position. But that's not a position that the Warriors can't handle. Now, for the Warriors to be missing their two best defensive players, they were missing their two best defenders. And despite that, they gave up only 108 points. Despite the fact they're missing Draymond Green, easily not only the best defender on Jokic, but pretty much the only one you could rely on with some confidence. And he was not there. And Jokic got his points, but Jokic was not destroying the Warriors. No, I don't agree with the premise that they lost this game. It's all, the world's over. Rebel the Sounds, I absolutely agree with you that the refs helped the Nuggets in this game tonight. And D, one very encouraging positive from this game, you're right, is the fact that the rookies played outstanding. Trayce Jackson-Davis was exceptional in this game. This is a rookie, folks, and you saw every time Nikola Jokic was matched up one-on-one on Trayce Jackson-Davis, every single time, Jokic just squared up. He was practically drooling seeing that matchup. And I'm sorry, and I'm going to look at the stats tomorrow in terms of how Trayce Jackson-Davis did specifically, but I don't think he played bad. Far from it. In fact, Trayce Jackson-Davis tonight, he was given 18 minutes in this game. Kudos to Kerr for doing that. He can handle the ball, which is encouraging. Was 2 for 3 from the field. Had 5 free throw attempts, which is not lost on me, considering how valuable those free throw attempts oftentimes are. He was 4 for 5 from the line. Finished the game with 8 points. Only grabbed 2 rebounds. I don't know what to really say about that. But nonetheless, I was encouraged. Another thing that I was very encouraged with, and this is where I do think Steve Kerr is going to have a moment of introspect in terms of this roster, because if he's going to be stubborn with his two veteran wings, and I'm referring specifically to Andrew Wiggins and Klay Thompson, um, then maybe my prediction will not come to fruition. I do right now firmly believe, I am very confident that if health provides, obviously, the Golden State Warriors are going to at least win the Western Conference. A huge part of the reason for me saying that, especially after watching tonight's game, is this is a night and day defensive team from last year. This team plays defense. They know how to play defense. It's where chemistry comes into play tremendously. Rick harps on this repeatedly, and a lot of other former players and brilliant basketball minds say the same thing. When it comes to team defense in the NBA, when it comes to basketball defense in the NBA, it's all about a unit playing together on a string. And that is where chemistry is vitally important. It's a huge reason why the Warriors defensively last year were a middle of the pack team. And for most of the season, they were near the bottom. They actually had to work their way up before finishing in the middle of the pack defensively in terms of net rating, in terms of points given up per game. This team is night and day improved defensively. This team also has a lot of depth, which you cannot write off. And they reminded everyone tonight of just how deep of a team they were. Something that was really encouraging that I watched was Brandon Podziemski got some minutes tonight. And what Podziemski, and what particularly intrigued me was in the second quarter, Brandon Podziemski was playing with the starters. Brandon Podziemski essentially took over Draymond Green's role. And it wasn't a bad call because Brandon Podziemski is a tough dude. Brandon Podziemski is obviously a point guard, just like Draymond Green. Brandon Podziemski averaged 8.8 rebounds per game last year. Granted, it was in college, but clearly the dude is a good rebounder. And that's typically Draymond's important role. Now, where Brandon Podziemski cannot replace Draymond, besides the veteran leadership and experience, is the size, right? He's just not as big of a player as Draymond Green. He can't play defense on Nikola Jokic, but I still loved seeing Podziemski out there with those starters. And they played well. They played well. I mean, this team, when you look at the youth and especially the rookies or the two third-way players in Kuminga and Moody, the future is so damn bright, but the present is also bright as well. Brandon Podziemski, by the way, played 3 minutes in that second quarter, was just 1 for 2 from the field. But not much in terms of stats, was an even line in terms of plus minus, which does say something because in the second quarter, Klay was -3, Looney was -3, Sharge was -3, but Podziemski was an even 0. So he was playing, at least when he was out there, better than those guys in terms of plus minus. So the point is, there were a lot of young players in this game tonight that excelled, that did not wilt under the pressure of a huge game against the defending world champions. But the introspect that Kerr is going to have to face is at the end of games. If Wiggins is struggling like this in January, February, if this is the Klay Thompson that we're going to get for the rest of his career, a player that tonight, for example, again, scored 15 points, not bad, but he was a -13 and plus minus, not good. He was 5 for 12 from the field. That's okay. He was 2 for 8 from deep. Definitely not good. In fact, if you take away his 3-point shooting, Klay finished this game 3 for 4 from the field. So maybe just simplifying his game and taking mid-range shots needs to be the future. But then again, if that's a player that Klay is now, I don't think he's getting a max deal, nothing close to that. And B, there are other players on this team who can also hit mid-range shots. There are also other players on this team who can hit 3-point shots at a better clip than 2 for 8. Where Klay failed tonight, I think more so than the 2 for 8 shooting, more so than the just bad defense at the end of the game. His lack of defense and that Reggie Jackson play at the very end, very disappointing. But from the free throw line, where he missed those 2 pivotal free throws near the end, finished the game 3 of 6 from beyond the line. He did grab 6 rebounds. Okay, so that's a positive. But my point is, when you're looking at a 5-man Warriors lineup in terms of who is finishing the game, should Klay and Wiggins be playing over Kuminga and Moody? Should Brandon Podziemski continue to only be playing when other veterans are injured? Same with Trace Jackson Davis. These are questions that I do feel Steve Kerr has to really take a deep, hard look at, because these are players that could be ready to go now. Moses Moody was fantastic tonight. He played 13 minutes and 53 seconds. That's it. Had the second fewest minutes in this game behind just Brandon Pajemski. I don't understand why. He was playing fantastic basketball. He was 4 for 7 from the field. He was 2 for 3 from beyond the arc. He was looking comfortable out there tonight. Also grabbed 3 rebounds. Was a +6 and +. The bench was all in a positive. Finished with 10 points. Why is he not finishing the game? Why is Moses Moody not out there at the end of the game? Jonathan Kuminga, who was actually I thought had a fantastic game tonight, played nearly 19 minutes. I didn't think he should have been taken out at the end for Dario Saric, who was then taken out a moment later for Chris Paul. And Kuminga finished the game 4 rebounds by his standards, a little better than usual. Finished the game with 10 points. Led the team in ± with 9. Why is he not finishing the game? At a certain point, the rigidity of Kerr in terms of who he plays, he has to take a moment to reflect on that, because that could be the doom of this Warriors team. Is if there's going to be a non-happy ending to this, is Wiggins and Clay, should they just be guaranteed these end of game minutes when they're struggling the way they're struggling? And I don't know. That's something Kerr's going to have to take a good hard look at and make some tough decisions, because in tonight's game, if Moody's in at the end, if Kuminga's in at the end, I don't know if they lose that game. I really don't. Got to give some love. We got a new sponsor for tonight's show, eBay Motors, and they're actually back. They were an old sponsor, and they're back in the mix now. Super stoked on that. And they've got a cool promotion with their Locked On Fantasy Basketball program. In fact, our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft, whether you're scouting the waiver wire, each week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. And so Josh picks 5 players, and I'm going to pick one of them from his lineup that I like the most. His 5 players are Brandon Miller of the Charlotte Hornets, Dylan Brooks of the Rockets, Bismack Biyombo. I didn't even know he was back in the game. I guess he is. Someone picked him up. Denny Abdia, I believe, of the Washington Wizards. And the player I'm going to go with is Jordan Hawkins. This rookie can shoot, folks. He is a 3-point sharpshooter. I mean, the guy can absolutely flick the wrist and make deep buckets. He should keep a starting role while the Pelicans deal with a myriad of injuries. His shooting is going to fluctuate, but he has appeal to be added in fantasy. That is Josh Lloyd's report. And again, Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle, right? What's your dream ride? Like, do you have memory? Like think about the car that you absolutely love. Maybe it's a car you own now. Maybe it's a car you once upon a time had. Well, with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, a roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, there will be no show tomorrow. That's essentially what this part 2 is filling in. We're doing 6 shows this week. So for a daily podcast, we're going overtime, baby. But Friday night, we're going to be right back at this. The Warriors, thankfully, are home. They're going to host the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's hope they get some vengeance for that game. And Greg Silver is going to join me for that. So definitely tune in. Follow me on Threads. It was blowing up there tonight. Add Dog Wild. Super easy. Caleb Johnson writes, and a few people, I'm bringing this up because a few people have asked to bring Athletic Alchemy on this show. Look, the invite's open. He's the one who just doesn't want to come on. So if you really want him on this program, bug him. The invite's been there, and he has made the decision to not come on the show. He's been on recently, but Caleb, you write that Alchemy is reporting something's going on with Wiggs, like an injury or the personal issue. I would trust more so what Rick Barry said just a moment ago on my show, considering he's a Hall of Famer, whereas no offense to Athletic Alchemy, but he has no connections with the team. So all he's saying are assumptions. Rick was just a moment ago in part 1 tonight was adamant that something is going on with him whether it's a mechanical issue, whether maybe that could tie into a mental issue. But Rick is saying that he needs help because his shots are going left to right. And so it's more of a mechanical thing. So Alchemy could be right to a certain extent there. But Rick Barry already elaborated on that. And again, he's one of the greatest Warriors ever, one of the greatest basketball players ever in the history of this game. So if you want insights when it comes to something like Wiggins, listen to Rick Barry, please, first and foremost. Heston Otso quickly chimes in that Clay pouting when Chris Paul didn't pass him the ball caused a defensive lapse at the end. I noticed that too. I'm glad you brought that up. That was not encouraging. Not very stoked on that. The Klay Thompson thing is disturbing because on one hand, I mean, and you heard Bob Myers say this in his NBA Countdown debut, that he jokingly said that he resigned from his position as GM of the Warriors because he didn't want to deal with the Klay extension. And he brought up the emotional connection Klay has to the Bay Area and to this organization. They're going to build a statue for him outside of Chase Center someday, and rightfully so. This is a very tricky situation. I've been talking about this for months now. It's very difficult to have a player like Klay, a superstar, a future Hall of Famer, one of arguably the second greatest shooter in the history of this game after Stephen Curry. But when a player of his stature, of his caliber, when his game starts to regress, and he's the last person who's going to admit it, he's the last person who's going to acknowledge it, and he lacks complete self-awareness in terms of his struggles, you've got a huge mess on your hands. You've got, and hopefully this mess will not, come out during the regular season. And look, I trust Klay in terms of him being a team first individual. But this could be ugly, because if this is the Klay that we have now, if Klay Thompson is permanently a so-so at best 3-point shooter, and you're relying on Klay at this point of his career to be more of like Magic Johnson when he came out of retirement, Magic when he came out of retirement, overweight. I'm not saying Klay's overweight, but in Magic's situation, he still wanted to played for the Lakers again. He understood that at that stage of his career, he couldn't be a starting point guard. So they were playing him at power forward. And it was awkward. Okay. Like, Magic Johnson's not a power forward. Magic Johnson was a flashy, highly skilled point guard. And it was awkward that one year seeing that. And, the question has to be raised. Like, if Klay Thompson, and I'm not saying his game has regressed, but his 2 games in a row where his shooting has been awful. It's been bad. 3 for 16 over these last 2 games. Reminds me a lot of that Lakers series again. And if this is what we're going to get on a permanent basis, where for every good game you get 3 or 4 bad ones, for the sake of a championship, Steve Kerr's going to have to make some really tough decisions there. I don't know what's going to, I don't know how you get out of this in flying colors. Let's listen to Steve Kerr real fast, talking about tonight's effort, because I agree with him wholeheartedly. I came out of this Warriors game tonight thinking to myself, damn, this Warriors team is ready. Despite the fact that Wiggins struggled, despite the fact that Klay struggled, their bench is one of, if not the best in the entire NBA. They're not, even though they have some size issues, they were missing Draymond Green. Gary Payton II plays like a big, and they're missing their 2 best defenders. So despite that, they should have won this game tonight. They only lost by 3. I'm confidently predicting that the Warriors will win the Western Conference this year. I'm confident in saying they are a better team than the Denver Nuggets now. Again, Denver's missing Jamal Murray. That's fine. He's a phenomenal player. But I'm going to put a lot more weight on Draymond Green and Gary Payne II over Jamal Murray, especially when the game's on the road. Here's Steve Kerr talking about how he felt about tonight's game.
Yeah. Down a couple key guys and, playing the defending champs on the road at the end of a long trip was a hell of a fight. Our guys really competed and gave themselves a chance to win. And, tough way to finish, but couldn't be more proud of them and I'm more excited about our team.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. This was a very encouraging game despite the loss. When you're losing by only 3 to defending world champions, and look, a game like this, make no mistake about it. These players in a game like this are rising up. They know full well what the stakes are. They know full well what the bragging rights are. This was a statement game for both teams. Denver was not sleeping on the Warriors tonight. And even though the Warriors weren't sleeping on the Nuggets either, for them to come within 3 points in Denver, without Draymond Green, without Gary Payne II, who has been playing phenomenal basketball this year, for them to only lose by 3, I was similarly very encouraged. So we're going to have one final segment here in just a moment. If there's more sound, I'll play it. There were a few other points I wanted to bring up. If there's anything in the chat, I'll happily get to it. First and foremost, though, got to give some love to our second sponsor for this evening, and that is, yet again, Jase Medical, a proud sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. Let me get their overlay here. Bam, wham. Thank you, ma'am. And, they got a full script here now. Let me read what they would like me to say. So we spend a lot of time talking together, you and I, right? We get fired up together on wins, and unfortunately, a game like tonight, a loss. Who starts? Who sits? Talking about Klay Thompson and Wiggins a lot, Kuminga and Moody. I'm thankful for that connection we have. That is a genuine thing that I just said right there. And today I want our chat to be a little more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications. Do you know what that means? Bring on extended travel. Bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, for Viagra, or Revatio prescription. And this is possibly because of our friends at Jase Medical. Go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jase, quote, "I am thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone," unquote. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. One final segment as we are wrapping it up. A few people in the chat saying trade Wiggins. I mean, I'm not going to touch that yet. Here's the thing with Wiggins is this. Even though his shot is non-existent right now, that's not far from the truth. It's certainly not hyperbolic. He's still an athletic, strong 6'7" wing with championship experience. That is who Wiggins is. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And believe me, I've been asking a lot of questions, trying to figure out if, in fact, he's having personal issues. If he is, no one I know knows. He's struggling, but I do think it is too soon to start discussing trades. I also don't know what kind of value he would bring back. But ultimately, look, one of the biggest perks of this Warriors team right now, one of the biggest positives going for them is chemistry. These folks, fortunately, really like each other. And it's no coincidence that the Warriors finished this road trip the way they did. I know they got 2 losses on it, but they also got 3 wins. And, and even in the losses at Cleveland, at Denver, They fought till the end. And a huge difference between last year's Warriors team that finished with just 11 road victories for the whole year, which is atrocious, versus this year's Warriors team, which already has 4 bench victories, 5. They're 5-2 on the road this year. Is chemistry. Like when they're going on the road, to put it in perspective, following the game against the Pistons, the Warriors went out for a team dinner. Draymond Green took the team out to his favorite restaurant in Detroit. His hometown is Saginaw, not far from Detroit. And they would never do something like that a year ago. Chemistry is important. Camaraderie is important. Liking the people you work with is important. I'm sure all of you can attest to that. And unless Wiggins is causing chemistry issues, you're taking a big risk by even broaching the subject of trading him, because obviously he's going to hate hearing that. It's going to get in his head, and it just could cause a lot more harm than as opposed to just sticking with a player who not even 2 years ago was the second best player in a world championship team, at least in the postseason. It's tough. Kurt Porter brings up DeMar DeRozan. Good luck getting the Bulls to agree to a trade like that, is how I'd respond. So now Caleb Johnson's asking, and I'm going back to you here, what happened to his jumper? Yeah, Rick Barry was, who I had with me for part 1, mentioned the fact that there's something going on there, because unlike Clay, whose shots, even when they're missing, are still straight, they might be short, and that could indicate maybe, just a loss of strength. Who knows what's going on there? But with Wiggins, his shots are just wild. They're going left, they're going right. So Rick, thank you again to the Hall of Famer for providing his insights there, does feel that there's something mechanical going on and that the coaching staff needs to work with him. So anyways, let's see what's going on in the chat real fast. Irwin Kwong saying Wiggins' jumper is flat. I agree. And Ken Mamba, I'm glad you brought this question up. Ken Mamba asks, given the chance, would you still stick with the current starting lineup? No. But again, this is where I will actually have to defer to Kerr. I mean, obviously I have to defer, but even for the sake of a show and for my opinion, I defer to Steve Kerr for the simple reason that I don't know if benching Clay and or Wiggins will cause ramifications, meaning are they going to be happy campers if you do that? As bad as they're playing now, will it make the situation that much worse, right? If you made a decision like that to bench them, would you then have to trade them? I mean, now you're approaching a level that the Warriors are not at right now. Everything's copacetic right now. They lost by 3 measly points to the Nuggets in a game that they easily could have won if the refs didn't completely screw them. So the question has to be raised, do you want to take those kind of risks? And I don't know. This is a very tough situation. There's no doubt about that. Glenn, I don't know why you thought Kylan would be joining us. She joins the program 2 days a week. There was nothing indicated at any point that said Kylan would join us. And sorry for disappointing you if that's what you're hoping for. The Wiggins thing is tricky. Some other stats real quick, just to catch people up in terms of what went down tonight. The rebounding numbers, the Warriors actually won the rebounding battle. Think about that for a second. The Warriors grabbed 49 rebounds tonight to 45 for Denver. They won that category. So the Warriors did a lot of things right tonight. And who was the leading rebounders for this team? Nobody was in double digits, but Saric finished the game with 8 rebounds. And by the way, Saric, on a side note, I was disappointed in the fact that Saric ended up getting 26 minutes and Kuminga got 18 and change. I guess you could round up and say Kuminga got 19. Saric is not good defensively. All right. He's tall, which is nice. No complaints there, right? He gives you some size, but he is not a rough and tough bruiser type big. So he got 8 rebounds tonight. That's awesome. But he also got only 4 points. He was also 0 for 3 from deep, and some of those 3-point shots were wide open. I do wish we saw more Kuminga. It was a little disappointing that he came in late at the start of the game. It was a little disappointing that Steve Kerr pulled him at the end of the game for Saric for like 30 seconds, and then he brought Chris Paul in after that. You do have to maybe ask yourself, is Chris Paul should he always be finishing games, right? Because the moment you bring Chris Paul in with Steph, that is a very diminutive backcourt that you're dealing with. So nonetheless, the Warriors did do good with rebounding, though. Again, Sharge grabbed 8, Looney grabbed 8. Chris Paul had 5. He got some tough ones, by the way. Chris Paul played good tonight. Kuminga had 4. In terms of points in the paint, a category the Warriors have been absolutely slaughtered in this season, they kept it close. They lost that battle 52-42. Jokic was feasting inside. I thought Looney did okay, all things considered, guarding Nikola Jokic. Not great, obviously, but he made Jokic work, and that's all you can ask for. Jokic finished this game with 35 points, 13 rebounds, was 1 for 8 from deep. His 3-point shot was not falling. And who knows, maybe he was exhausted. Usually a tired player does not shoot the ball well. Turnovers we talked about earlier with Rick Barry. The Warriors had this was very impressive. They had 5 turnovers in the first quarter, a quarter that saw the Warriors trailing, but they finished with just 9. So 4 turnovers over the 3 final quarters, not too shabby. Now, unfortunately, the Warriors defense only forced 6 turnovers. So, it's, even though you only had 9 for the game, they still didn't win that battle. And then the stat again, and this is a stat, and this is where I think a lot of people are going to talk about the starting lineup, and this is where we'll finish up the show. And Uli Burrell, I agree with you that Kuminga is a starter. I don't know why he didn't start tonight. I'm glad you brought that up. Saric started this game. Why not Kuminga? I didn't really understand that part of it either. Let me see if there's any sound here real fast for me to play, but I did not understand Kuminga not starting tonight. I do wish he got a little more of a run. I don't understand why Moses Moody only played 13 minutes, 53 seconds. Why? Why? I mean, you're missing Gary Payne II. You're missing Draymond Green, and you respond to that by playing Moody less. Moody was 4 for 7 from the field. Again, 2 for 3 from beyond the arc. Finished the game with 10 points. Why? Why is he only playing 13 minutes and change? Brandon Podziemski, he's a rookie. I love the kid. I wish we'd see him play more regularly. He played 11 minutes in tonight's game. Here's the stat, though, and this is where Steve Kerr's going to have to address this at some point. The Warriors have the best bench in the NBA, but their starting lineup lets them down a lot. And tonight, when you look at the plus minus, Wiggins -6, Saric -12, Looney -6, Clay -13, Steph -10. Steph, by the way, had a so-so game. Steph was 6 for 13 from the field. I'm sorry. Steph was 6 for 13 from beyond the arc. Did not make a single 2-point shot. He was 0 for 4 from mid-range or close. And that includes the left-hander at the end that would have tied the game. That play was bizarre too. I mean, Steph did have an open lane to potentially hit that game winner, or I'm sorry, a game tying basket. Why not play for the win? I didn't really understand that part either. Usually when you're on the road, you're down by 2, you're going to go for a game winner. Either you hit it, you win, you go home happy, or you miss it, you tried, you lose the game by 2. What are you going to do? And for some reason, though, Steph attacked. A left-handed driving floater is not an easy shot, contrary to what Richard Jefferson was saying. But nonetheless, again, this discrepancy between the bench and the starters have to carry their weight. That's the bottom line. Because you look at the bench, Chris Paul, +5. Trace Jackson-Davis, +4. Jonathan Kuminga, +9. Brandon Podziemski, +8. Moses Moody, +6. Moral of the story, your starters lost this game. Your bench kept you in it and almost won the game for you. Don't reward them by taking minutes away. Anyways. And Ken Mamba, yeah, I totally agree with you. That they should have just gone for the game winner. Anyways, that's it. I gave you an hour tonight. Bottom line is this. I really believe confidently that the Warriors are going to win the Western Conference this year. I'm calling it now. November 8th. That's my prediction. And I'm feeling good about it. I don't know if they're going to beat the Celtics in the NBA Finals. I want to see that matchup, but stay tuned for more. Thanks, everyone, for joining me as always. And we'll be back at this Friday night. That's it. Bye-bye.